have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrup.
And before we get started today, we have a couple of program notes for you. If you watch us on Free Speech TV, we want to let you know that they're going into pledge mode on September the 6th through the 25th. And during that time, they're going to premiere the show on Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time and repeat on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern and Sundays at 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Eastern Time. You got all that? 7. Just keep 7.
Except 9 on Fridays.
Right.
And then they go back to regular programming schedule on September 26th, but we're grateful for all those airings.
They
during
like
their
us.
pledge
They really
week.
like us.
Yeah. So we'll see how much you like us, because we want to offer you an opportunity. We have decided we need some new substitute co-host, not to get rid of Chris Cooper, who we adore and who is loyal and wonderful and here as frequently as we need him. But we think we ought to start working in a new roster of people in addition.
We're not getting any younger.
So if you watch this show and you say, I could do so much better than them, we want to hear from you. Send us a little audition tape of a few minutes. You have to be available to be in New York City on Wednesday afternoons to tape the show. And of course, you have to do what we do, which is spend 9,000 hours a day rounding up the news by sitting in front of your computer or going to things.
So if you're willing to do this, basically show us that you can do what we do and make a
and then we'll let you do it.
Make a tape of up to 5 minutes, tops. Again, send it to us. Send it to me, Andy at gayusatv.org. Andy at gayusatv.org. That's my email address. And we'll take a look at it. Don't call us, we'll call you. And of course, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background when you send along the tape.
To us, the most important quality is some journalist savvy. Preferably experience. We don't think you have to have a lot of TV experience. We didn't so much when we started. It takes time to get into it. But we are interested in your editorial content and how smart you are about the news. You don't have to be a clone of us, although of course that would be appreciated. But really, we just want people who are smart and curious about the world and willing to do the work necessary to do the show.
Right. You could even do a duo if you want, with someone else sitting at the desk. Give yourself a feel of it. Get a friend to do it with you. You both don't have to apply, but
even a blow-up doll.
That's fine. I was watching Airport the other day with the blow-up doll right in the plane.
Okay.
All right. To the news this week.
Yeah.
Lots of serious stuff.
Yeah.
First of all, there was a
couple of bad legal decisions.
Well, there was a setback for the Obama guidance on transgender students. We'll explain that. But relief is on the way for transgender folks in California.
There's a double entendre in that headline, which we'll get to. Also, a federal judge in Michigan sets back the principle that anti-transgender discrimination is sex discrimination.
We're up to about 50 lawsuits against Catholic institutions that discriminate against gay people. There are 2 new ones, one in New Jersey and one in Virginia. They're being sued by gay and lesbian employees.
And who says that conversion therapy doesn't work? An anti-LGBT mayor has found a reason to embrace LGBT rights.
We're going to show you a video of neighbors rallying for a lesbian couple who were vandalized in, how do we say this?
Natick, Massachusetts.
There it is.
Reports of anti-LGBT violence from New York City to Alabama.
The lesbian legislator who voted against same-sex marriage in Hawaii, well, she lost her primary.
What a shame. And the aforementioned Chris Cooper has sent us an extensive report from the FlameCon convention in Brooklyn this last weekend. So we'll show you some of his pictures and talk about that.
So we start off in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, we've told you over the course of the last year about how President Obama has issued guidance for local school districts who are wondering how do we handle guidance for transgender students.
Not rules, not a law, not even an executive order, just guidance.
This upset a lot of people in in Texas and many other states who want to sue over this.
Well, there were two major lawsuits. The one we're about to tell you about had 11 states joining together to sue to stop these guidelines from being enforced in school districts around the country. There's another separate lawsuit for another approximately dozen states.
So in this case that we're going to tell you about, the virulently anti-gay Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, looked for a district that didn't have any problems with it, but were problems around transgender students, but picked them in North Texas, I believe. And he was looking for a very anti-LGBT judge, and he found one in Reed O'Connor, a George W. Bush appointee, not all of whom are bad.
He got the schools to adopt a binary bathroom rule that forbade transgender students from using the bathroom corresponding to their lived gender.
Show your birth certificate.
Exactly.
That's outrageous.
And then in anticipation of the federal government objecting to that, went into court to get an injunction against enforcement of the Obama administration guidelines, which they had not made any attempt to enforce.
No, the judge says this is a nationwide injunction against this thing.
Which he has no power to do.
He also said that the Department of Education and Justice failed to show follow proper legal procedures before issuing the guidance in May. So he's trying to be technical about it.
Well, that is the basis of his decision, that there was no public comment process. Well, since it's not a regulation and it's not a law, it doesn't require a public comment process. This is the administration issuing guidelines.
And because many local school districts were seeking guidance on this because they were getting sued on a local level by students who were,
wanted access.
And those lawsuits, by the way, Gavin Grimm among them, are still going forward, are not affected by this, although the courts may look at this decision, but they're not affected.
I mean, the Texas judge who did issue this injunction against enforcement of these guidelines previously tried to stop same-sex couples from having access to family medical leave benefits from the federal government. And we told you last week.
Even after same-sex marriage was legalized.
Before and after, I think.
Right.
But we told you about this case having a hearing last week or the week before, and him assuring the Attorney General that, don't worry, I've almost got this opinion written already. In the midst of the hearing, he says to the Attorney General.
Ex parte communication, and it's illegal.
So this is certainly an outlier judge. There's no reason to believe that this will ultimately have an effect on any actual national rulings on the issue of whether trans students should have access to.
It just poisons the public atmosphere, which is what they intended.
Exactly, and it gives them hope and gives them something to yell about. But it's discouraging, certainly, to trans students and their parents and all educators who are trying to do the right thing.
But our friends at Lambda Legal said, look, this is one judge. School districts are still obligated to treat transgender students fairly under Title IX, which forbids sex discrimination.
Exactly.
And there are other court precedents involved in these cases.
Yeah. Now, in terms of Title IX, or Title VII, actually, of the Civil Rights Act, we have another dicey decision in Michigan.
Yes, this is a little complicated.
It is. Well, it's another technical decision that relies more on the judge saying, well, if the person had brought this case instead of the EEOC, then there would have been different grounds, and maybe I could have decided differently.
The person in question is
Amy Stevens.
Yes, so we have a picture of her.
We do.
She worked for a funeral home, yes?
Yes.
And essentially, this case was brought by the EEOC.
Yes. Well, they first ruled in their forum that she had been discriminated against by the funeral home when she announced she was transitioning, and they said, oh, no, we don't like that, you're fired. So the EEOC found for her, and then the EEOC went into federal court to bring a claim against the funeral home on her behalf.
And U.S. District Judge Sean Cox said that the forcing the funeral home owner to accommodate her would impose a substantial burden on its ability to conduct business in accordance with its sincerely held religious beliefs. I don't know where that comes in.
And this is all a result of the Hobby Lobby decision, which allowed private businesses to have religious beliefs, something that previously we would not have imagined possible.
But perversely, the court found that Ms. Stevens would have a valid Title VII claim against the home in the absence of using a RFRA defense, a Religious Freedom Restoration Act defense.
Well, the Hobby Lobby case also says that for the business to succeed in its defense against a discrimination claim and to be able to assert that it has a religious right to discriminate, the claim of the employee must impose a substantial burden on the business, not just offend the owners and their religious beliefs, but impose a substantial burden. Because this was about things like paying for birth control. Well, how does a transitioning employee impose a substantial burden on this funeral home?
Well, I'm not trying to be glib, but you've got people like the Pope saying that acceptance of transgender is like nuclear war and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So religious
Yes.
groups. Why do religious groups have any problem with transgender people? I don't know.
Well, it seems to send them screaming from the room.
Well, because a lot of religion is based on very strict gender roles and all those things. God is a male, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Well, nonetheless, these are two bad decisions in Texas and Michigan, but they are technical decisions and they don't necessarily have long-term implications. The Michigan decision did include a finding that Title VII does not protect transgender people under the rubric of sex discrimination, but that, again, is just one decision.
And we were doing fairly well on that front with transgender people, being seen as sex discrimination. Of course, we're trying to also expand that to sexual orientation being considered sex discrimination, et cetera. So, and the right wing never rests. They also want to file a new lawsuit saying that providing transgender people health care violates religious beliefs. And this is, again, a multi-state
give them an inch
suit against the Health and Human Services Department in this case.
Which did issue regulations saying that you cannot discriminate against transgender people in health care because that's sex discrimination.
I mean, joining the states are the Christian Medical and Dental Associations, the Franciscan Alliance, which is a Catholic hospital system, saying they object to providing services or even referrals for transition-related care or providing insurance that covers such care because it violates their religious beliefs.
They're all getting so clever. This is the Little Sisters of the Poor charity or whatever saying they can't even provide referrals for birth control or sign a paper saying they're not providing it.
Wasn't Jesus very nice to eunuchs and other sexual minorities?
I do not want to... okay. I accept that.
Yeah.
All right. And continuing with religious discrimination and legal issues, we go to...
Paramus, New Jersey.
Okay.
Well, this woman, Kate Drumgoole, she had gone to Paramus Catholic High School. She rose up in the ranks. She became the Dean of Guidance in 4 years. She became the head coach of the Lady Paladins basketball team. And she's head of guidance, so she's kind of discreet about her personal life because she says, look, I have to counsel them. I don't want them thinking about who I am personally and all this kind of stuff. So she's married to a woman, but she's discreet about it.
We showed a picture of her and her wife.
She doesn't talk about it. But she has a fight with her sister-in-law. And
The wife's sister.
And her sister-in-law goes after her and tells everybody, and they get...
Posts it on Facebook, sends it to the school.
They get rid of her. And she says, I'm bringing suit over this because, look, you've got...
well, you're in New Jersey. You have a non-discrimination law that protects people on the basis of sexual orientation.
Several faculty, she says, are divorced. At least one has a child outside of marriage. Various employees cohabitate with members of the other sex. And at least another teacher is gay. And nude photographs of another teacher have been circulating online. She puts all this in her suit and says, why me? We're just trying to lead my life with my wife.
Well, the problem is that hypocrisy is not against the law, and the school can pick and choose as it wishes.
We'll see about that.
Well, this is the thing. The school says she's married to a woman that violates our Catholic doctrine and beliefs. She works for a church, Catholic high school, and therefore we're allowed to fire her. And she says, I am not a minister. I am not teaching religion class. I have nothing to do with that. And and the religious liberty clause does not protect you to fire me.
She got a lot of support from the ex-coach. I'm not saying what happened in Seattle, where the students walk out of school in support of her.
I don't know. I don't know how much support she's getting from the community, but there is some speculation that she was fired as retaliation for reporting employees' sexual abuse of students on a field trip.
Yep.
So they really don't want her around. But the school went to court to get what's the word?
Injunction?
No, the immediate decision.
Get it thrown out of court.
Yes, and the court said, no, we're letting this case continue.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens, but again, this is the question: what are the limits of religious organizations' ability to discriminate?
Yes, and the same thing is happening, or similar thing is happening in Richmond. Now, this is
Virginia.
This is not a school. This is a guy who was John Murphy was executive director of the St. Francis Home in Richmond. He went through all these interviews to get this job, and
a home for the aged.
8 days into the job, or something like that, they find out he's married. He's in a same-sex marriage. They say it's antithetical.
He was invited to an event run by the Archdiocese or something, and told he could bring his wife. And he said, I don't have a wife, I have a husband. And they said, oops.
A partner of 30 years, by the way, who we married. And when he told the supervisor there, her initial reaction was she shrugged and said, well, it's 2015. You know, but once the higher-ups got a hold of it,
well, the religious leaders, the board of directors didn't care, and in fact, many of them have
the bishop who really insisted that he be terminated.
Yes, the board is threatening to resign over this in support of him.
He's asking for $750,000 and attorney's fees.
The least he's due. All right, in Illinois, the Supreme Court there says a lesbian ex-partner of another woman cannot sue for equitable distribution of property when they separated because they're not married.
Well, they have an arcane law in Illinois about this.
Most other, I call it the Judge Judy law, because if you go into Judge Judy's court and ask for some adjudication of a partnership disagreement, she says, you're not married, you can't come before my court. Well, okay, but most states do in fact adjudicate such situations, but the Illinois Supreme Court refused to.
In Fargo, North Dakota, a settlement was reached in a trans employment discrimination case brought by Faye Seidler and the Sanford Medical Center against the Sanford Medical Center. She was discriminated in the workplace, and they have settled the case.
And there's a case settled in Long Beach, California, one of those barber shops that said they would only serve men. And when a trans man went in for a haircut, he was told, you're a woman and we will not give you a haircut. Well, now the case has been settled, and the barbershop will have to serve everybody, male and female, and everybody, no matter who they are, and will have to pay damages to the trans man they discriminated against.
More good news from California, where they passed a bill that would require, when you have single-serve restrooms, that they be multi-gender.
Yes.
That could be for anybody. This is for single occupants. This is for businesses as well as government buildings.
That is the explanation of Andy's headline that said relief was on the way in California.
It is a relief.
In Kentucky, the court has dismissed remaining damage suits against clerk Kim Davis, who didn't want to sign marriage certificates for same-sex couples. This is basically a technical cleanup, but Liberty Counsel is saying, Kim Davis has won! Well, in their place, I might say the same thing.
Can we show them? Can we show them the video from Natick?
Natick.
Didn't I say it right?
Yes, but you you pronounced it like Donald Trump pronounces LGBTQ.
Thanks a lot, Ann.
Natick, Mass., a lesbian couple, longtime residents in the neighborhood, had one of those rainbow flags that says peace on it. It's actually a European peace flag. They had that hanging out, and they went away for a few days.
Well, let's see what happened.
Okay, let's see what happened in Natick.
Carrie and Lori Riding put up a flag like this after the mass shooting in Orlando. They came home from vacation, and it was gone.
Lori noticed that our whole front of our house had been egged.
Some of the eggs.
Heartbreak. Like, how could this happen in our neighborhood?
It's just a mess.
For anybody to do this to anybody.
It really is hard to feel like someone hates you.
The married couple has lived in this Natick neighborhood for years, a neighborhood where they felt accepted.
I don't want this to happen to anybody else. Is it just vandalism? Is it a hate crime? Is it just pranksters?
So they filed a police report fearing the vandals might come back. But it's what neighbors did that made them feel safe. One by one, families put up their own flags. Now, roughly 2/3 of homes here have one.
The first thing, actually, when I heard about it, I thought it was, all right, I'm going to put up a flag, and we should all put up flags.
The ages of 5 to 16, they were all out, on their bikes for over an hour delivering the flags.
It's wild. I mean, you just fill up with tears driving down the street.
Can't speak.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, the support.
A strong message from a neighborhood united.
If people want to do that, they're just not going to be welcome in our neighborhood, and I hope this is a good sign to that.
Very nice, very sweet.
Very
and
sweet.
that's what needs to happen, folks. When you see discrimination, close ranks, support your neighbors.
I have to say,
any kind of discrimination.
When I first started to read this story, my first reaction was, kids in the neighborhood, tore the flag down, egged the house. And then I get to the rest of it, and kids are riding around the neighborhood handing out these flags, and I felt ashamed of myself.
Kids are people too.
Evidently. Of course they are.
And another example of closing ranks, we told you that the NBA moved the All-Star game out of Charlotte, North Carolina, because of their terrible law. Well, they're moving it to New Orleans.
Yes.
For 2017, the All-Star game.
Because they have full non-discrimination protections.
Yes, and let's talk about what's going on, speaking of basketball, what's happening in San Antonio. We've told you about their mayor there. Her name is Ivy Taylor. We have a picture of her. She won, and she was the anti-gay candidate. She said discussing LGBT rights protections was a waste of time. She voted against the LGBT rights ordinance, called it a political stunt. Well, this week, she's speaking out against the Texas legislature trying to pass a law like they have in North Carolina, like HB 2. And why? Because she's worried about San Antonio being able to host the 2018 Final Four.
The NCAA basketball tournament.
Has gotten religion. Well, we'll take it any way we can get it.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Ivy.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think we should get to let's do a couple of other political stories, as long as you mention the mayor. In South Carolina, I remember the lesbian police chief, Crystal Moore, who lost her job and then got it back with a lot of community support.
I do remember her.
She is running to be the first female sheriff and first out lesbian. sheriff in Dillon County, South Carolina. And, you know, this is not New York City, and she's getting a lot of support, and we will keep an eye on her race.
On the other hand, you may remember when Hawaii passed same-sex marriage, the state representative who's an open lesbian, Jo Jordan, voted against it. She said her constituents weren't for it. Well, she lost her Democratic primary to a man who wasn't even supposed to be on the ballot.
Yes, because he was a Green Party member, but he registered as a Democrat.
Well, now the Republicans are saying maybe we can get this seat.
No.
That's what they're trying to do.
And in Alaska, the Assembly of the City of Juneau has passed a sexual orientation and gender identity non-discrimination law.
Unanimously.
No, 8-1.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Close.
Who did that? The military is now going to cover trans-related health care for families of service members.
But not transition-related surgery, I think.
Not for, and the new policy still won't cover gender confirmation for military dependents.
Right.
Right.
I think we have to move to violence.
Well, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, all right. Terrible story in the Bronx in New York City. Where have I got that? Marcus Bellamy is a dancer. That's the victim.
That's the victim.
Yes,
the victim is Bernardo Almonte. That was his partner who Marcus Bellamy killed. Marcus Bellamy was in Spider-Man, Turn Off the Dark, 32 years old. So, but he, God, he kills the lover. He says, I did it for love. I did it because I love you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I am God, all this kind of stuff. So he sounds a little off kilter. Anyway.
Bad story.
Horrible, horrible, horrible.
In Florida, a trans woman, Stacy Neighbor, hanged herself in solitary confinement in a men's prison, Dade Correctional. She had been refused the opportunity to serve in the women's prison. Her name change was refused. She was just totally discriminated against, and she ended up hanging herself.
And let's put up the picture of from New York City of Omar Villalobos, 25 years old. He's in Bryant Park, right there in the heart of Manhattan.
Right behind the New York City Public
Library. And a guy who's kind of crazy, shouting anti-gay slurs, beats him this way, injures him severely. So he and his friend, we're not even sure that the guy is gay. They're shouting anti-gay slurs at him, homophobic slurs. They go to the police, and the police say, "We're here to fight terrorism, not what you're going through," and they won't do anything about it.
And they keep pleading with the cops to grab the guy. The guy is still standing right there. It's not like they have to chase him because he's a crazy guy. So now the cops say, "Oh, they're just going to put him in mental unit for a few days and let him go." They don't want to do the paperwork.
Right, and then they say, "Okay, that's not good. There'll be an investigation. We'll try to find this guy now, but we're not probing the police officer's behavior."
Yeah, this is other units of the police department who agree to look for the crazy guy.
Tuscaloosa?
Yes.
Okay, we have a video from Tuscaloosa about a gay bashing where we don't know the sexual orientation of the victim in this case, but let's go to the
bashed as gay.
Yes.
Night out turns into a nightmare. Now he wants justice after some men allegedly beat him up because they thought he was gay. Good evening, I'm Lee Garner.
And I'm Jim Dunaway. This incident happened outside of the Green Bar in downtown Tuscaloosa late Friday night. CBS 42 reporter Stefan Dingle has been investigating this story for us. He's live now where the incident allegedly took place. Stefan?
Jim, good evening. Last Friday, Johnny Bishop was leaving the Green Bar just behind me with a friend, and that's when he said two men stopped him right here and asked him if he was gay. The two men exchanged words, and that's when he say he was attacked from behind.
Was holding him down on the ground and was hoping that this whole thing was over at this point when the other assailant came at me, blindsided me yet again from the other side, hit me twice in the face.
Johnny was walking with his friend Kat that night.
It's been a very inconvenient spot.
She says she was thrown to the ground by one of the men as she tried to help, especially after a third man joined in the attack.
He was bleeding so badly. At this point, I'm not sure where the third guy was. And about that time, they drove out of here in the SUV with the girl driving. She had the window down and was kind of looking at us and smirking.
Police showed up shortly after the incident as Johnny's face bled. One of the men stayed at the location as well, but police didn't arrest him because they say they didn't see the assault. That's when Johnny frustratingly shouted at his attacker.
You need to get rid of the hate in your life. I yelled that loudly, at which point the officer did threaten to arrest me for disorderly conduct at that point, which I found to be unbelievable also.
Extremely dramatic. I'm scared to go to my favorite bar now. I'm scared to go to any bar in Tuscaloosa now.
For Johnny and Kat, Tuscaloosa is home, but they say their backyard is littered with those who wear hatred as a badge. Now, Johnny Bishop was able to work with investigators here in Tuscaloosa, and just this evening they were able to obtain an arrest warrant for one of those suspects. Obviously, as this thing develops and we learn more information, we'll be sure to keep you up to date. We're live in Tuscaloosa tonight. Stefan Nagel, CBS 42 News.
We do need the police to take these things more seriously.
In Queens, New York, a trans woman was hit in the head from behind with a hammer on the street, just walking along.
6 o'clock in the morning, guy crept up behind her and said, "This is what you get for being gay." By the time you've seen this, there will have been a rally out there at 5 o'clock on Thursday in Woodside, Queens, in support of her.
It's just everywhere, and even not here, it rebounds here. A bisexual Jamaican man who was in Jamaica, shot, stabbed, rejected by his family, gay bashed, stoned, robbed, married a woman for protection, applied for asylum here in the United States, saying, "I'm bisexual, this is everything that's happened to me in Jamaica, it's not safe, I need asylum here."
If you send me back, it will be a death sentence.
The 7th Circuit Court of Appeals has rejected asylum for him and said, "We don't believe you're bisexual because you married a woman."
They don't even know, as Judge Posner, who was the dissent in this, and he's our friend, he's a Republican who's our friend, he says, you don't even seem to understand what bisexuality is.
Wow.
The LA Galaxy Major League Soccer player Robbie Rogers, who's out gay, he returned from after an injury, was playing a game, and somebody on the opposing team, the OC Blues in the United Soccer League, kept calling him queer repeatedly during the game. So they are investigating that. They will not tolerate that.
In the realm of sports, one of our viewers thought I did not give adequate credit to the WNBA's Liberty New York City basketball team last week when I was talking about the New York Mets having the first Pride night for a major league men's sports team in New York. If I left out men's or major league or whatever, I certainly apologize. I'm well aware the Liberty has been doing Pride Nights for many years, but the men finally got on board with the Mets this year. Yankees, Rangers, Knicks, Nets.
On Sunday, August 28th, there's going to be a commemoration of the 50th anniversary. This is pre-Stonewall of the Compton's cafeteria riot in San Francisco at Baedeker Park at 1 p.m., 295 Eddy Street.
And Charlotte, North Carolina had its much anticipated Pride March this last weekend. They had a huge turnout, including 10% of the marches were churches and choirs supporting LGBT rights. And of course there was the local religious right hater Flip Benham on the sidelines with a microphone yelling and screaming stuff, but a very, very successful Pride March in Charlotte.
I love these stories about shows of solidarity.
Yes, exactly. And in Kansas City, an out lesbian minister, Cynthia Meyer, who came out as a Methodist minister earlier this year or maybe last year, has now stepped down rather than face trial in Methodist court.
Come on, Methodists.
Oh, well, I think Hillary has to be asked about this.
She's
a big Methodist, and she...
Well, you know, Tim Kaine's a big Catholic.
Yeah.
You know, but he supports abortion rights, you know, so...
And LGBT rights, and so does she. But I think it would be nice if she, as a Methodist, made a statement about her church discriminating.
Yes, I think
I don't
they should.
doubt her support of LGBT rights, but I think she could be helpful.
Okay.
The University of Geneva has issued a new study. It is teeny tiny. They, you know, a couple score people they looked at. Homophobia and impulsive attraction to the same sex. This is the ongoing debate about the people who hate us really just running away from their own feelings.
Homophobic men linger over gay images longer than non-homophobic men.
I tend to think, you know, whatever. You know, the goal is to normalize same-sex attraction for anybody who feels that, and in the mind of those who don't. There's also a new study I put in quotes, that the right wing is touting that says, oh, there is no evidence that there is any innate sexuality. And I'm thinking, really? Are you willing to blow up heterosexuality too? That's quite a leap.
Well, don't forget, it was homosexuals who coined the term heterosexual. And homosexual came first.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks is under fire because they exposed a trove of cables that exposed a lot of people's medical information, and including the publishing the name of a Saudi citizen arrested for being gay. The point is, they're not taking care with the releases, and some of this information can get people killed.
Well, they're quite rigorous about not caring about anything other than releasing information.
Well, there should be limits to that.
Well, they're not.
I'm all for transparency, expose government secrets when they're sinning, all that stuff. I am.
Yeah.
You know, all right.
Olympic news?
Yes. Well.
Well, we criticized NBC for not mentioning Dustin Lance Black, even though they took shots of him in the stands when Tom Daley was diving. Well, they made up for it by doing a little profile of one of their little video, you know, feel-good stories on Tom Daley, and included the information that he was engaged to the Oscar winner, Dustin Lance Black.
But the right-wing Christian Voice site said, turning gay doesn't seem to have done Tom Daley any favors at Rio. Well, of course, he did win a gold medal in the synchronized thing, but he didn't do well in the individual. And J.K. Rowling came to his defense saying, I can't decide what is more offensive in this tweet, the stupidity or the spite.
Out LGBT athletes at the Olympics won 14 medals of one sort or another, and that turns out to be more than any medal count from any country that outlaws gay sex.
How about that? Are we going to go a little out of order with images and put up Helen and Kate here?
Sure.
Okay. If you hope the control room can get a hold of that, because we have Helen and Kate Richardson Walt.
There they are.
Yeah, they're together. They're married, and they won a gold medal in women's field hockey in Great Britain.
They're the first same-sex married couple to win medals together in the Olympics. Now, of course, how possible was that in recent years? Not much, but congratulations to them. As an old field hockey player myself, I feel very proud of them.
Continued mess in Australia over this same-sex marriage thing, because we really are getting to the point where you've got a conservative government that wants to have a plebiscite on same-sex marriage, and enough people in the other parties are saying, we're not even going to vote for the plebiscite. We want a vote, and we're not going to vote for a plebiscite, which would cost $160 million, and we're just not doing it.
Our side wants a vote in Parliament.
Yes.
The liberal right-wingers who are in power,
that's the name of the party, the Liberal Party,
don't want to allow a vote in Parliament because they're in coalition with real right-wingers who don't want it to happen, and they will lose power if they allow the Parliament vote. So they want to shove it off to a popular vote to create a mandate so they don't have to take responsibility for this.
But they're not promising to vote for it if our side wins the plebiscite as expected, if it was held. And our side is basically saying, first of all, we haven't had a plebiscite in Australia for 100 years on anything.
Yeah.
And these things...
And it's expensive.
And it tears the country apart because it pits neighbor against neighbor, and it gets very ugly.
We already know how everybody feels.
Yes. So don't do it.
So our side says, forget the plebiscite. We just want the parliament vote. We're not going to vote for a plebiscite. We're going to hold out for a parliament vote. Now, that's a risky strategy because they may not be able to pull off getting the parliament vote, and then we're stalemated for more years.
Well, it becomes an issue, though. I mean,
Of
but that's
course
the way it
it's an
should be
issue.
done.
Yes, ultimately it should.
Because, that's the Republican form of government.
And in Poland, 5 couples who were refused, same-sex couples who were refused marriage licenses have filed an appeal with the European Court of Human Rights to try to establish same-sex marriage rights in Poland.
Well, the only countries that don't have any rights for couples are Bulgaria, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, and Poland. 61% of Poles still oppose it.
In El Salvador, a lawsuit has been filed to overturn the ban on same-sex marriage. See, this is spreading everywhere to countries where you would least expect it.
In Nepal, they've got a constitution that says they're supposed to be protected, LGBT, but they're saying it's not being enforced, so they had a big march, and the U.S. ambassador to Nepal, Elena Teplitz, was a participant.
Joined about 1,000 people in marching in Kathmandu in the annual Pride March.
Yep.
In Mexico, however, the religious right is organizing big marches in the next month or so against the advance of same-sex marriage there.
But bad news from Turkey, and we have a picture of this trans woman activist sex worker who was raped and murdered, Hande Kader. She was mutilated, her burned body was found in
22 years
in
old.
Istanbul on August the 8th. She was a sex worker in her early 20s, last seen entering a client's car. But there we have another picture because there was a huge protest about this in Istanbul.
There she is. She was a great activist. She showed up at all sorts of protest marches. She was a terrific local activist. And this is actually a picture of her at a previous, when they tried to hold the Pride March and the cops came after them. This was her at that march.
Yes.
And then this is the protest after her murder.
Conducted by Transgender Europe. And they say that Turkey has the highest murder rate for transgender women in Europe. In the Church of England, part of the Anglican Communion, a group of gay clergy are going to reveal that they're married with partners. You told us we couldn't do it, we're doing it. Do your worst.
And in Mexico this weekend, in Cuernavaca, they're holding the first national LGBT conference. We'll send you any reports we have on that.
Indonesia, the right wing, is suing to restrict our rights, and in Uganda,
well, they're trying to really reimpose Sharia law across the board
for
in
gays
Indonesia.
and straights.
In all sorts of ways, and criminalizing gay sex is just one part of a much broader attempt there.
And sex between unmarried people.
Yes, yes, they want to really shut it down in Indonesia. They are afraid of liberalizing influences, and there's a strong right-wing movement to take the country backwards.
And in Uganda,
in our view.
And in Uganda, the Minister of Ethics and Integrity is paying $771,000 to a Korean firm to give them the technology to entrap gays using electronic means and all this kind of stuff.
I thought they just used Grindr.
Well, basically, but okay.
All right, AIDS news.
Yes.
In Australia, they are doing a new HIV prevention campaign, and they're targeting trans guys, among others, with information.
That's the picture there.
Yeah, that's one of their advertising images. In the United States, the Human Rights Campaign and the Whitman Walker Clinic have just published a new Safer Sex for Trans Bodies guide. If you check out HRC's website or the Whitman Walker Clinic, I'm sure you can get that.
And you in California are facing this Proposition 60 to sue people in pornography who don't wear condoms. It gives you the right to sue people in pornography who don't wear condoms. So this is brought by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which is
another Michael Weinstein production.
Zealot. And so it's being fought by LGBT groups, AIDS groups, non-gay groups. The California and Democratic and Republican parties are against this.
In Detroit, the Ruth Ellis Center, which is a community center named after that great longtime activist Ruth Ellis, is partnering with the Henry Ford Health System to open the first healthcare facility focused on LGBTQ youth. So that's going to be a great thing in Detroit.
Yeah. And Gilead is now openly pushing Truvada and PrEP awareness. They used to pay other people to do it. And they've launched a new website, preventhiv.com. Now, if we could only get them to lower the price
that would be
of
nice.
Truvada.
Yeah.
Because it works.
Yeah. All right, entertainment news. Well, I'm very happy to see that the new watered-down version of Ben-Hur has been a flop at the box office.
Yes.
Well, this was an interesting story.
Did they de-gay it?
Yes, because it turns out this is a remake of the big Charlton Heston epic.
Well, but they've been making films of it since about 1910.
But it turns out that the Charlton Heston version was written by Gore Vidal, and Gore Vidal added his own homoerotic subtext to it.
Well, he went to Stephen Boyd, who was playing Masala, and said, look, you're having trouble with the relationship with Ben-Hur there, with Charlton Heston. You were lovers when you were kids. So play it that way. When you watch the scenes, it's quite evident.
He didn't tell Charlton Heston this. And after this story came out, Charlton Heston was quite upset about it. But
Charlton Heston was also upset when people said Michelangelo was gay, and he played Michelangelo in The Agony and the Ecstasy.
Poor Charlton Heston. So this is, if you look at the Charlton Heston Ben-Hur, it is extremely homoerotic and very entertaining. So now along comes a religious group that wants to remake Ben-Hur, but they can't get the rights from the movie studio, MGM, to remake the film, so they have to go back to the book. But
the book is Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ.
Yes, exactly.
Jesus is a figure in it.
There's much more Jesus is seen from the back in the Charlton Heston version, but there's a lot more Jesus in this version. But they had to go back to the book, and it doesn't have the homoerotic subtext. So they put out this film, and it was flopola at the box office.
I heard that the action sequences were okay, but that's about it.
Well, but there's no more homoerotic subtext as a reason to see it.
Chris Cooper has a movie review up at cfcooper.net of The People versus Fritz Bauer, a dramatized account of the post-war hunt for Adolf Eichmann with a significant gay subplot. I'll be interested to see that.
Yeah, but he didn't like the movie.
Well, just saying.
Well,
he's got a review up.
Yeah, and you know, don't hide the fact that he didn't like the movie. What he did like was Sausage Party, which is an R-rated cartoon that I've heard a lot of good things about, and has a lot of gay stuff.
Can you say Sausage Party on Gay USA?
Of course you can. And I have no idea what you're talking about. But Sausage Party, Chris Cooper liked. And Chris spent a lot of time this weekend at FlameCon in Brooklyn. This is the LGBT answer to Comic-Con.
Because when you go to a lot of the comic conventions, you get a lot of straight guys who are not very sympathetic, some of them, to gay people.
Right.
So this is a place where you can go be yourself, as you will see from the photos that we're going to show you.
Well,
you can
there's
be
someone
yourself.
dressed up as the FlameCon symbol. Very attractive. This convention, by the way, is produced by Geeks Out, which is the LGBT technology types.
Chris says you can be yourself, you can let your hair down.
Well, this is Wonder Woman, whose hair is somewhat down, but looking very fierce.
And there's Robin from Batman and Robin.
Yes, wearing a skimpier costume even than, I think so. I think that's a little skimpier on the bottom than Robin in the TV show or movies wore, but what do I know?
All right.
So
what did he say? He said the highlights were an openly gay, famed artist, Phil Jimenez, known as Wonder Woman, and comic book writers Greg Pak, who's behind the latest incarnation of the Hulk, and Chris Claremont, who turned X-Men into the comics juggernaut it is today.
There's controversy about a new movie called Reassignment. Michelle Rodriguez is, who did that boxing movie, is a hitman who is tricked into trans surgery. And the surgery itself is depicted very violently. So all of this is, and then seeks revenge for the surgery. So the trans community is really not happy with this movie, and that is not getting recommendations.
I was happy with a play that I saw this week at the Mint Theater. I'm very fond of the Mint. They're now at home at 410 West 42nd Street. It's called A Day by the Sea by a playwright named N.C. Hunter from 1953. There's a shot of it. He's sort of an English Chekhov. It's a fine ensemble under the direction of the guy I call the Iron Man of the New York theater, Austin Pendleton. The guy never stops working. George Morfogen, who's 83, stands out as the elderly Uncle David. So I'd say stay with one. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes long. Very strong second act.
Okay. Now, we told you last week about Tracy Norman. Tracy Norman, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, was a very popular and successful model in New York. But when it came out that she was transgender, suddenly she lost her career.
Yes.
And
at Clairol.
And
right?
other places,
Yes.
too. And I remember hearing when I was in college in the 60s and in New York first in the 70s about trans models. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a whole new world I hadn't heard of. But
well, there was no Gay USA show then. That's about the last time there wasn't a Gay USA show.
Yes, exactly. So the story that came out last week was that Clairol, which had stopped using Tracy Norman all those years ago, had heard about her and this story and decided to look her up and rehired her to do a new campaign for Clairol. And so we told you that last week, but now we've come across a little video that Clairol made as part of their campaign. This is a Clairol video, but it's really a charming look at Tracy Norman and her story, and so we thought we would show you that.
I love to, what I say, float when I walk because the fabric is blowing in the wind and it just makes me feel beautiful. We are in the Pierre Hotel where I came in on a meeting with Irving Penn and Italian Vogue, and I started working immediately. Once I signed my contract with Clairol back in the late 70s, I was on their hair color box, Born Beautiful. My color was dark auburn, box 512. It was exciting because I saw my face in drugstores everywhere and my work started picking up more and more. When I was 18, I graduated from high school. My mom, she was very excited for me. That's when I proceeded to tell her my truth. My mother, being a mother, of course she knew, and what she did was open up her arms, told me she loved me, and supported me throughout my entire life. Back in the 70s, it was a different world, especially for transgender women, because I was working as a female model. For me, personally, I had to hide my truth, because if I was to tell, I'm sure that I would get fired. But that day came. I started working also for a magazine. I was on the set. Suddenly, someone came in the door, and that person called the editor over to him, and they had a conversation. It just started feeling very negative. She decided to close the set and send everybody home. And that was the day that my truth was revealed. And yeah, my work stopped right after that. A few months ago, I received a phone call. The person on the other line wanted me to come in to meet some clients for a job. They were from Clairol, and they were interested in bringing me back. And at the time, I just had so many different emotions going through me. I was being accepted for who I was, and they wanted me to come back as that person and not be something other than what I truly am. A woman of color, of course. The nice and easy color that I'm using today is 6N by Clairol. It seems to soften my features, which I absolutely love. Don't be afraid to live your truth. And if an opportunity knocks, go for it. It's good to be back, and it's really good to be me.
Very great to see someone triumphing,
yes,
getting another chance.
Yes, and we have a young person who's coming out. It's Disney star Bella Thorne. She came out as bisexual on Tuesday just by answering a fan who said, "What's up with you kissing the girl?" And she said, "Are you bisexual?" And she said, "Yes." She broke out on Disney Channel's Shake It Up and has appeared on MTV's Scream, the TV series, and the 2015 movie The Duff. And she's very appreciative of all these supporting trusts. It turns out she's dating, let's get this right, she recently broke up with her boyfriend, Greg Sulkin, in order to start dating her brother, Remy Thorne's ex-girlfriend, who's also named Bella Pendergast. There's some gossip
Two
for you.
Bellas, that's tougher.
Bella.
Yeah. Well, great. You know, the younger generation, they're more relaxed about this.
Yes.
Is that our fault?
And in the older generation, I see Jennifer Holliday is going to take over as Shug Avery in The Color Purple on October 4th.
That could be exciting.
And some late-breaking news I just saw while we were watching the film. India is looking to ban surrogacy for foreigners and gay couples. That's not nice.
No. And what's your Donnie McClurkin?
Oh, Donnie McClurkin is he's the homosexual guy who's been saved by Jesus. He's 56, big gospel star.
Who was he campaigning for? Was it
horrible,
McCain years ago?
Just horrible. Yeah. But he is now dating gospel singer Nicole McMullen. He said the only thing missing in his life is that wife that would make man whole, that element that brings favor to man.
Good
luck, because you're going to need it.
All right. Well, just in the last couple of minutes we have, let's repeat what we said at the top of the show.
Yes, free speech is going into pledge mode on September the 6th through the 25th, so we're going to premiere on Fridays at 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can do the math on where you live.
And it'll be repeated on Saturdays at 7 p.m. and Sundays 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. for about
free
3
speech.
weeks.
We're always online at Gay USA TV. Please sign up for our email list by going to our website, www.gayusatv.org.
Yes.
And
we are reaching out to you to let you know that we are open to people telling us they would like to be substitute co-hosts for us. We might actually get a vacation once in a while.
Just show us what you can do.
Yeah.
By sending us a tape, send it to me, Andy, at gayusatv.org. Make it under 5 minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself. And again, don't call us, we'll call you.
We're looking for a little journalistic savvy and experience. We can teach you how to do TV.
Yes.
But we need hard workers who like to have fun on the air and be serious too.
And tell people about what's going on in the world LGBT-wise.
But meanwhile, we will be here next week and we will see you then.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.